Hi everyone, I'm Gina K from Gina K Designs and your host of Stamp TV. I'd like to welcome you to our release party presentation. Today you will get to see many of the new products being released in action right here in this video presentation, along with some useful tools. At any time, feel free to click on the links below the screen to play along with our contest questions, challenges, and to see all of the stamp sets in full, along with beautiful samples created by our design team especially for you. The techniques from today's release party presentation will be archived in our video section at Stamp TV for viewing whenever you like. And if you're the partying type, we have a party chat thread going strong where you can hang out with the design team and me from now until 1 p.m. Central Time. And the best news is, all of the products are available in our store at ginakdesigns.com right now, so you don't have to wait until 1 o'clock to place your order. So sit back and relax and enjoy today's release party presentation. The first technique I'm going to show you today features the brand new set by Beth Saleka called Wicked. Wicked is full of adorable, solid, spooky images and fun greetings for all of your Halloween projects. And soot stamping is a fabulous way to use this adorable new set. Let me show you the tools and products you need to do soot stamping. First, you're going to need a nice chunky image. And I'm using the little grouping of stars here from the Wicked set for my background. Then you're going to need some glossy cardstock, and I'm using the glossy cardstock that we have at the Gina K Designs online store. You shouldn't use photo paper for this technique. Photo paper, the makeup of photo paper is a little bit different than glossy cardstock for crafting, so make sure you have real glossy cardstock for crafting. And then you're going to need a candle. So here I have a little pillar candle that I already lit that's ready to be used for soot stamping. Now, when you buy glossy cardstock for crafting, you'll find that one side is glossy and the other side usually isn't glossy. You want to hold the glossy side down and you want to quickly pass it over the flame, just like I'm doing here. And let me show you what that's doing to the other side. Can you see? It's basically burning that gloss off of the surface of the cardstock and leaving soot behind. So you want to make sure that you move relatively quickly. You don't want to hang on one spot too long because you could set your cardstock on fire. And I know a lot of you craft with your children, and that's really fun, but a technique like this definitely should be done by mom or grandmom and not the kids, just because of the risk with the fire. Okay, so I think I got a little speck of something on there, but you'll be able to get the idea of what this looks like. It almost looks like a spooky, shadowy nighttime sky. So once you've gotten a lot of soot all over your cardstock, then you're going to start to stamp. Now, one thing I'm going to recommend is that however you're going to do your project, that you start with a piece of cardstock larger than the actual size that you want the cardstock to be. And let me show you why. Because you're going to need to pick this cardstock up and you're going to need to be able to manipulate it a little bit. But if you touch it anywhere, it's going to show your fingerprint because you're going to be able to wipe that soot right off. So you want to make sure that you've got a little border around the outside that you can cut off once you've finished your project. So now you don't need any ink or any water or anything. You're just going to take that stamp right out of the package and you're going to press it right onto that soot and lift. And you can see that that just pulls the soot off and it puts it on your stamp. So you will need a stamp cleaner. And you can either just use a little bit of water or your favorite stamp cleaner and then just dry it off with a little paper towel so it's nice and clean again. And then you can do your next one. And there's some more. Isn't that super cool? There we go again. And just clean it after each time so you get a really good, vibrant image. And you can see what that's doing. Let me see if I can cover up that little spot. There we go. Now I'm not too worried about the center because I am going to put an image on top of the center, so you don't have to stamp all over the center if you don't want to. And again, I am going to trim that down a little bit so I don't have to worry too much about my edges with my fingerprints getting on there. There we go. So there is the background. Now I'm going to try another little piece of glossy cardstock. I have a little one here, and I'm going to grab that candle back, and again I'm going to burn the gloss so I get a nice creepy look. See how that's getting real creepy? It really does look like a scary Halloween sky. So we might as well take advantage of that by creating a sky scene. Move the candle out of the way. So the next stamp I'm going to grab is the witch stamp. I love this little witch flying through the nighttime sky. So I'm going to stamp her right about here. Make sure I press down real well. So there's my witch. And then I'm going to add a moon. And I love this moon. The detail in this moon is really cool. So I'll press that down. Make sure I have that pressed nice and hard. Isn't that cool? That little swirl. And I think no card is complete without, no Halloween card is complete without a little bat flying. So we'll have a bat flying back here, like that. And there is my little scene that will go on top of my background. Now, obviously, if I can't touch this, then you can't send a card like this, so you're going to have to set it with something. So what I recommend setting it with, and you can pick this up at your local big box craft store or art supply store, this is the Prismacolor Fixative. It's for pastel, charcoal, or pencil, but it heat sets beautifully on when you're using it with soot stamping. The one thing you will notice though is when you spray this fixative onto your card, where the little bits of fixative land on your card, they will also turn white, so you're going to have a very snowy little look. And I'll show you what that looks like in my finished card project here. Here I made a card using that technique, and you can see there's little tiny specks here and there that really look neat. They almost make it look like a star-filled sky. And so I like the way that looks with this starry background. You can see it down there, and you can also see it a little bit around the moon. And that's just from spraying that Prismacolor Fixative, because the mist just lands and it leaves little tiny dots. But there's my finished card. All I did was mount those pieces onto some black onyx cardstock and then onto a 120-pound Gina K Designs white card base. And then inside I just used black ink, and I used the What's Brewin' stamp, and then I connected the little spider to the bee. But that would make a really fun Halloween invitation, or even just a card for a friend who you think it would be funny and they would get a kick out of a little witch flying through the sky. A couple extra little tips when doing the soot stamping technique. Remember to only spray your fixative outside or in a well-ventilated area. It can get pretty strong, the smell, so you want to make sure you have a lot of ventilation. And make sure that your candle is blown out before you ever spray any fixative so that you don't start a fire. Other great techniques for the Wicked stamp set include Pull-In Pastels, Emboss Resist, and Joseph's Coat. You can find these and other fun techniques by clicking on the Videos tab at stamptv.com. The next project this afternoon features the brand new stamp set by Melanie Menchinger called Beyond Baskets. If you're a collector of Melanie's Beautiful Basket series, you're going to love the Beyond Basket stamp set. Melanie has opened up a whole new array of options for all of your basket filling stamp sets. And these adorable containers don't stop there. Fill them with Prima flowers and all kinds of die cuts to create beautiful three-dimensional cards too. Today I'm going to show you how I color this tin bucket using Copic markers and then a fun background technique using your Cuttlebug. Let me show you the tools and products you're going to need to do these techniques. First, you're going to need 2 of the stamps from the Beyond Basket set, and that is this tin pail, this bucket here, and then you're going to need the handle. Then you're going to need some Copic markers, and the colors I'm using are G12, which is sea green. You're going to need T5, which is toner gray, number 5, and you can use a cool gray or a warm gray if you have that instead. And then you're also going to use E19, which is mahogany. Then you're going to need a Memento Tuxedo Black ink pad and some cardstock, and I'm using the Gina K Designs. This is the Layering Weight Ivory cardstock. Now, that's the tools and products you need for the tin, but you're also going to need a Cuttlebug folder, and I'm using the Swiss Dot folder, and then I'm also going to use another piece of the ivory cardstock. And you're going to need an ink pad, and I'm going to use the Toffee Crunch ink pad and the Peanut Brittle ink pad. Okay, so to begin, I'm going to ink up this tin here, this tin tub. I just love this stamp. These are so much fun. They're so useful for so many things. I have so many small stamps in my collection, even little apple stamps and things that I think would be so fun to just pile up inside this particular stamp image. Okay, so there I have my tin bucket, and now I'm going to do the handle. And we do carry this stamp set in both clear and rubber. It's a little bit easier to see when you're using the clear stamps. However, our rubber stamps are cut very close, so if you prefer rubber, you still will be able to line this up very well. Okay, and I'm going to just line it up. I need to look over it, so excuse my head if it gets in the way. There we go. Missed a little bit of the bottom of that handle. There we go. Okay, so now I have my tin ready to go, and I'm going to start by coloring it with the toner number 5, the T5 Copic marker, because that's the base color for this particular tin pail, is that nice deep gray. I really like the chisel end. You can color the whole handle too, because we'll add a little bit of red into that to make that stand out a little bit. And the chisel end is fun to use because it covers so much surface all at once. And then when you get to your more detailed areas, you can use the pointed end. And of course, a lot of you have the chow markers or the sketch markers, and they have that nice brush tip that does the same kind of thing as the chisel end. Allows you to color large areas all at once. Okay, get that little handle in there too. Okay, so you can see I didn't worry too much about blending because I want it to look kind of splotchy and old. Now I'm going to use the tip to this and give this a little bit of this mahogany a little bit into the handle there. And now I'm going to come back with my sea green, and using the chisel end, I'm going to add some green in there. Now can you see how that is making it look more almost kind of patina? It's got that kind of rusted old look. I'm just bringing it in little spots here. And what I like about this is, just like a colorless blender pen, when you run a lighter color Copic marker over a dark color, it will lift the color. So you see how that creates some kind of distress and antiquing? Okay, now I'm going to keep this marker out because I need it, but I'm going to go to the mahogany one, or I'm sorry, I called that mahogany. It's called redwood. That is E19 redwood. Okay, and I'm going to color over these lines that are already built into the stamp. Melanie drew those in there for me, which is great because I can just follow along with them. And that almost gives it a little bit of a rustiness about it. But I don't want them to look so bright and vivid, so I am going to run that green back over them to soften them up a little bit. And that just distresses the whole thing even more. There is my rusty old tin waiting for some of those beautiful flower images from the holiday basket set. I'm going to put the big bold sunflowers in there and make an autumn card. So that's an easy way to color that stamp, just with a couple of different Copic markers and just following along the lines that Melanie has already so graciously drawn into that image for you. Now I'm going to create the background using the Cuttlebug, the Swiss Dot Cuttlebug folder, and some ivory cardstock. I'm going to line that cardstock up into that Cuttlebug folder, and then I'm going to start with an A and a B plate, the Cuttlebug folder, and then the second B plate on top. And I'm going to run that through. Now a lot of you by now are pros when it comes to Cuttlebug embossing folders, and they create such a beautiful look for a background. But I want to show you something fun that you can do with this before you make it into your background. I'm going to grab some of this peanut brittle ink, Memento ink, and I'm going to run it down onto the cardstock. And this colors the dots of the Swiss dot pattern there a little bit darker, but I want to really dig in there because I want to create even more of a texture. See that texture coming through? Just rubbing back and forth on it. And it really creates a very interesting look. Now I'm going to add just a little bit of the toffee crunch just on top, just to make sure my dots really pop out. You don't have to do this part, but I kind of like it, to add a little bit onto the edge, just to darken it up a little bit. And of course, that's going to dry a lot lighter, but that makes it look that much more rustic. Let's see what that looks like there. So, along with my distressed tin here, let me show you my finished card project. What I did here was I used that background and I mounted it onto some ivory cardstock and then put the whole thing onto a dark chocolate card base. And then I used the Cuttlebug for another piece of ivory, and I just cut out my little tub and put it right there onto the ivory cardstock, and then I stamped these little sunflowers from the holiday basket stamp set and cut them out and popped that on top with some 1/4 inch pop dots just to give it a little bit more dimension. You can see that that's a little bit raised up. The Blessings stamp is also part of the brand new Beyond Baskets stamp set. And I stamped that on a little tiny scrap of ivory and just used that same peanut brittle ink along the outside so that it would coordinate with the background. I used a corner notcher on my 4 corners. I used the tonic one, that's called the ticket tag punch, and then I added some of the copper brads. And there is my finished autumn card, perfect for sending for the Thanksgiving holiday. Along with all of Melanie's beautiful basket filling sets, you can also fill these containers with sports equipment from her sporty sets to make fun cards for the athletes in your life too. Teresa Momber has done it again. She's created a beautiful holiday stamp set that's perfect for coloring, but also ideal for embossing, which happens to be one of my favorite techniques for holiday cards. So today I'm going to show you how to make a quick and easy embossed card for the holidays that looks like $1,000,000. The other stamp set that I'm featuring in this project is the brand new 1 Free with 3 stamp set called Seasonal Labels. Seasonal Labels is full of holiday greetings that can be used alone or with the 2 label images that can be stamped directly onto your cardstock or cut out with various dies and silhouette cut files. Let me show you the tools and products that you need to do this technique. First, you're going to need some cardstock, and I'm using the Gina K Designs Ivory cardstock. You're also going to need some embossing powder, and I'm using the Ranger Superfine Detail Gold Powder. You're also going to need an anti-static pad. This pad is called Embossing Magic, and what it does is it removes static from the surface of your card and any oils or debris that may have gotten onto your card, and you only want the embossing powder to stick to the ink and not to those oils or other debris, so this gets rid of that. Then you're going to need a Versamark pad, or any other watermark or embossing ink pad will work as well. Then for the finished card project, I'm using some of the Gina K Designs Good as Gold cardstock and some 1/4" pop dots, a little bit of ivory gold-lined ribbon, and some scissors and adhesive. So let's start with the embossing part of this project. I have here the stamp set by Teresa Momber. And I'm going to grab that Christmas tree, and because this is kind of a large image, I don't want to distort it at all, so I'm just going to lay it on its back and pick it up on my block that way. This way there's no distortion at all. And then I'm going to run the Embossing Magic anti-static pad over the entire piece of cardstock. Next I'm going to ink up this stamp really well using some Versamark ink. Now, because you can't see Versamark ink, I would err on the side of over-inking than under-inking. So just ink a little bit more than you think you need to. And I'm going to stamp that image onto this piece of ivory cardstock. And this is pretty sticky ink, so when you lift it up, your cardstock will be stuck to it, and then you can just pull it off there. Now I'm going to use a little piece of scratch paper. Find something here. There's a little piece of red cardstock. And I'm going to sprinkle my embossing powder all over that Versamarked image onto this little folded piece of cardstock. And let me just blow away the excess. And if you have any parts like right up there, maybe you can't see that. Let me zoom in a little bit. You see how some of that embossing powder is stuck? Just take your finger and wipe it off. Anywhere that you see anything that you don't want on your piece of cardstock. So there we go. Now we have the tree image. And I'm going to replace this. That's why I like to use a folded piece of cardstock, because I don't lose any embossing powder that way. And now I'm going to heat that up using my Marvy heat tool. And it doesn't take long for the gold to come up. It is a fine detail powder, so once you see it start to come up nice and shiny, you want to move to the next area so you don't burn it. There's nothing like the look of gold embossing powder on ivory cardstock. It's just beautiful. Now, if you're mass producing these, it would be a good idea to stamp them all and put the embossing powder on all of them, and then just take a little bit of time to emboss each one. Okay, so now you can see that nice shine. Isn't that pretty? Okay, now because this is a very big, bold image, I wanted a small little greeting right up in here. So I decided to use one of the greetings from the new 1 Free with 3, the seasonal labels, and I'm going to use the one that says Peace, Love, Joy. So I'm going to, once again, run a little bit of that anti-static pad in the area that I want to emboss, because I did touch that quite a bit. And I'm going to ink up my greeting real well. And then I'm going to stamp it right next to the tree. There we go. And again, I'll grab that little piece of cardstock here and sprinkle my embossing powder on top of that greeting. And there you can see peace, love, joy. And I'll replace that. It's always a good idea to get the embossing powder out of the way once you're done using it, because you could inadvertently heat it up on your table if it's sitting in a little pile, and you could melt it and then you won't be able to use it anymore. So it's good to get it out of the way before you start heat embossing. And I'll just finish this. Now I could have done them both at the same time, but for me, I can be kind of a messy stamper, and there's not a lot of room for error there once you have something sitting there with embossing powder on it or ink. So I thought I would do the two steps separately. Do the tree first and then the greeting next. Okay, so now my next step is going to be to layer this piece onto a piece of gold cardstock that I have cut. And you'll notice that when you use embossing powder, it does kind of warp your cardstock a little bit. That's okay. Once you mount it onto your finished card or your panel or your layering piece, it'll get nice and straight again and flat. Okay, so there we go. Now I have that nice piece mounted on gold. Now I already used the Cuttlebug here. You can see I used that Swiss dot folder again, and I'm going to mount that piece onto some gold cardstock as well. I like the Swiss dot. I also like the Snowflakes Cuttlebug folder, the forest branches. There's so many pretty ones for winter and holiday cards. But since I was working with the Swiss dot one, I thought I would grab it a second time. And now I'm going to take that gold line ribbon and cut a little piece for the center of my card. And I like to hold the ribbon, flip it over, and put a little bit of tape on each side, and then tape it down. Now, when you flip it over, it's not always straight, so it's easy to just reposition that. And with the Cuttlebug folder like the Swiss dot, it's real easy to make sure it's straight because you can see the dots through it and you want to make sure those are straight. And this whole panel is going to go on top of an ivory card base. This is the 120-pound ivory cardstock. Makes a nice base. And we'll pop that right onto this card base. That. And then using some 1/4-inch pop dots, and I'm going to use 6 for this because I want to make sure that it's tacked down in the center. You can even use a few more if you want to really make sure it stays down. Sometimes I like to use one right there and right there so that I know it's tacked down right in this area of the card. Especially when you're using a metallic cardstock on a textured surface like a Cuttlebug folder surface, you need a little bit of extra sticky stuff. And that is going to go right on top like that. There we go. And there is my clean and simple card. Now, one more fun little tip, and especially when you're making holiday cards. After you've chosen an inside greeting from your collection, you can also pick up a Versa marker. And what you do is you stamp your greeting and emboss it, and then using the Embossing Magic anti-static pad, you can rub that over the area you want, and you can write whatever you want on your card. And you can use a little bit of embossing powder and you can emboss your own signature on your card to coordinate with the rest of the card. So that Versamarker is a fun tool, especially during the holidays. Many of the beautiful images in the joyful holiday stamp set can also be colored using Copic markers, pencils, and watercolors. Your holiday stamping possibilities are endless with this beautiful new set. With the limited amount of time we have during our release party presentation, I'm not always able to feature every stamp set being released. But I wanted to show them to you and tell you a little bit about each one, and then stay tuned for individual videos featuring each of these sets in the upcoming weeks here at Stamp TV. The first set I want to show you is the brand new set by Becky Ohlers called You Say Goodbye and I Say Hello. This brilliant stamp set is perfect for sending cards to all of your international friends with greetings like bonjour, ciao, and guten tag. You can send friendly cards in several different languages. And of course, your local friends will get a kick out of these images and greetings as well. I'm in love with this background stamp that Becky included in this set. These delicate chevrons will make great backgrounds and can be combined with any other stamp set in your collection. The next stamp set I'd like to show you is this fabulous new set by Tammy Mayberry called Take Note. This set is perfect for card making and can be easily mixed with other images in your collection. But it's also great for scrapbooking and journaling, and it'll work very well for those of you participating in the Project Life scrapbooking program. And some of these little images and greetings will also make perfect lists, and they're also fun to use for decorating envelopes and ribbon. The third stamp set I want to show you is the new set by Gina K Designs called Primitive Blessings. For those of you who love folk art and primitive style decor, you'll love these sweet images and the heartfelt sayings and greetings included. This set is perfect for Thanksgiving cards, cards of friendship and encouragement, and you'll be able to make adorable boxed sets of cards to give to teachers, neighbors, and friends for the upcoming holiday season. Stay tuned in the upcoming weeks for projects featuring these fabulous new stamp sets. I hope you've enjoyed today's release party presentation video. The design team and I will be hanging around until 1 o'clock in the release party chat thread at the link below the screen. And the contests, challenges, and full stamp set reveal links will stay live until Monday when we choose the winners of our contest questions and challenges. Those winners will each receive a grab bag of over a dozen deeply etched pre-cut Gina K Designs rubber stamps. And now that you've learned more about these products, you can visit our store at ginakdesigns.com. Thank you all so much for joining us today, and we'll see you back here soon on Stamp TV.